Hey there, content creators, and welcome to another episode of So You Want to Make Comics. Today, I have the return of two-time Eisner and Inkpot award-winning comic book writer Mike Baron. You know his work from The Punisher, Batman, many other comics, including his own Nexis and The Badger. Mike, thanks for coming back on the show. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, Chris. Thank you for having me.
So, this is fun because we had you on a year ago, and you were then talking a lot about a really great book that you guys have been crowdfunding, which is Offworlder. And now you're back with, you got a lot going on at the moment, but the big splash, so to speak, is Florida Man. And we've been hearing a lot about Florida Man in the newspapers one way or another, and you kind of created an amalgam. And I just want to start off by kind of getting my impression. It almost feels like this would sit well on a shelf with Archer from FX, like fans of the animated show Archer. Is that the kind of humor you're going for? What is Florida Man all about?
Well, Florida Man is about Gary Duba. Gary Duba's having a bad day. There's a snake in his toilet, a rabid raccoon in the yard, and his girl Crystal's in jail for getting naked at a Waffle Hut and licking the manager. It's that kind of story. I have tried to incorporate as many of his Florida Man stories as I could into the narrative, but because it's a novel, and because its purpose is to uplift as well as to entertain, it's not as scurrilous or as disgusting as so many of those stories are, but it's scurrilous and disgusting enough. The challenge was to make the character sympathetic, and I think I have. In many ways, Gary is the most admirable character in the book. He's just got a hair-trigger temper. He's got low-down sensibilities. He likes to get high. He likes to get drunk, and he makes a lot of bad decisions. And he's always looking for a fast buck, and this leads him into one awkward situation after another. I wish I could tell you what's in the book, but it's too explosive.
Well, I've heard you read on other shows a few excerpts from Florida Man, and it seems to me like you said, he's a good guy. He's just that way, and that's kind of what I like most about an engaging character is. No matter how offensive or oblivious or unself-aware they may be, if you kind of get a sense of the relationships, that this character has and what his intentions are, you kind of can't help but love him despite all that. You feel like you could look past it and hang out with him, knowing him the way you do from the inside point of view of the novel.
Yeah. You just don't want to hang out with him too long, because he'll get to a point in the evening where he starts swinging and doesn't look what he's hitting.
He sounds like he could be fun. So, just stepping back a bit, like what was the inspiration for him? Was it just simply reading the different headlines, or was there a certain headline that caught your attention and then suddenly
No, it wasn't any one headline. I always say I don't pick my stories pick me, and I just kept seeing one story after another, and it was like somebody is telling me to write a novel about this guy. So the challenge was to embody as many of those stories as I could in one person. And take him through a narrative that will make people's head explode.
Does he have a nemesis?
He has many nemesis. Many nemesis. He's in trouble with the law off and on. They know him. He's like a local character in his hometown of Turpentine before he becomes famous. And he becomes famous for all sorts of crazy reasons. In the first novel, he kills the largest Burmese python in Florida state history by slicing its head off with a machete. But then in order to claim the prize, he has to duct tape the head back on the snake and take it and take it to the committee. But his real claim to fame is, there are some things he does in the book that are outrageous, and he has to hide from them. And he can't own them because they're illegal. Well, I don't want to give anything away, but I will tell you that at one point he agrees to smuggle in 100 rare South American tarantulas aboard an airliner. And the guy says, don't worry, you just check the luggage through, there will be no problems. Well, That's all I'm going to say about that.
I mean, I don't know. It sounds to me. Now you said this is the first novel. So how many novels are there so far, and which installment is this Kickstarter for?
This is the graphic novel, which is neither one of the novels, although the graphic novel contains elements from both novels. The second Florida Man novel is called Hogzilla, and it's available now. Hogzilla, and you can imagine what the nemesis is in that. Although it's just one of several, and I'm working on a third now. But Florida Man, the graphic novel, came about because I don't know how I hooked up with Todd Mulrooney. I think he was working on a story for me for something else, and I liked his art. And I asked if he'd be interested in drawing it, and he came up with this cover, which is so iconic. I mean, everybody who sees the cover just loves it.
Yeah, this is really, and again, I agree with you on the artwork. I think the artwork is perfect for the theme and the sensibility, the humor. I mean, the humor comes across in the artwork. So him just jumping over a car in a gator, on a gator, and I'm not talking about the kind you cover your face with, but on an alligator waving a hat like it's Dr. Strangelove.
That's where the inspiration came from.
Yeah, that's really cool. And here's the thing is I really, I'm a huge fan of comic books, and I read all the time. But what I love about comic books is and graphic novels is that you can bring that kind of a little bit more of the humor into focus with the kind of artwork you use. And I mean, I'm probably not the first person to say this, but I even look at that artwork and go, well, that could be an animated show. Like Archer, right, yeah. I'm a big fan of Archer. I would love to see, on FX or something like that, an animated Florida Man show.
I would too, but somebody else came out with a novel titled Florida Man after mine, and that was optioned for a TV show. But you can't copyright a title, and the problem is I'm on a small publisher with a limited budget, and I wish more people knew about this book than do. But it is by far my most popular novel.
And I'm looking forward to the graphic novel as well. What was the other thing I was going to say? Oh yeah, audiobook. You probably get a good actor to come in and do the voices in audio version. I bet someone could bring that to life. I'm always listening to Audible. Books on tape. They're not a sponsor, but if you're listening Audible, you can be a sponsor of my show. But have you thought about doing that? Bringing the
it's
story?
Up. It's up. The narrator is famous. His name is Bray. Just a second, I'll find it for you. And the audiobook is readily available. Here we go.
And we'll leave links in the description of this interview so you guys can find Florida Man on audio as well as in paperback. And is it Kindle available as well?
Yeah, I believe so. R.C. Bray is the narrator. He's got quite a following. He's a very famous book narrator.
Oh, nice. That's very cool. I may have to get it on audio then and listen to it while I'm driving. Although I'm hoping that people will not have car accidents if they're listening in their car.
Yeah, it is a real hazard because it's one of the funniest books ever written, and the comic is the funniest comic ever done. I mean, the humor is it's real humor. It's not puns or plays on words. It's humor that arises out of the situation. And if you know anything about Florida Man, you know that it's just a minefield waiting to be exploited for jokes. I mean, the headlines themselves. In fact, let me put in a word for a site called FloridaMan.com, which is an aggregate site for all those stories. And there are tens of thousands of them by now.
That's amazing. I mean, you gotta wonder though. I mean, has Florida, in a way, there's been so many Florida Man headlines. You have to wonder if it's kind of like a, I don't know, has it become a self-fulfilling prophecy? Do people in Florida go, hey, we got to top ourselves now?
No, I mean, most of the stories, you read them and you understand that a lot of those people are really messed up and they've just made terrible decisions. They're not looking for notoriety. Nobody, I mean, Florida Man claims syringe found in rectum is not his. Nobody wants to get famous like that.
No.
And then a Florida man arrested for defecating on traffic from light pole.
Ooh,
Yeah.
what? I
Those
can't.
are two true stories.
Oh man. Well, let someone else degrade themselves, and then you can get famous off of it.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and I am, like I said, the artwork is really great, and let's say Todd Mulrooney is the artist, and I really want to encourage people. Hopefully I can post some of this artwork in
Please.
the video. But there's really I just love how the characters are so expressive.
Yeah, they are.
There's a lot of good body language and just kind of the way the faces are designed. You feel like you've run into these people in real life, and you get the sense that you wanted to get away from them as quick as possible.
Especially Gary. He really looks like a Florida man.
And it's got, there's all sorts of stuff going on here. There's, like, they're hanging out with these kind of trailer babes, and there's wrestling, and there's airboats, bow and arrows.
Swamp bugging.
Yeah, this, like I said, this is the kind of thing that tells me that this would sit on a shelf nicely with Archer. People who are fans of Archer would probably really get a kick out of this. As far as the artwork goes, how much of it is in the script? Are you a very detailed scripter, or do you just kind of give them the general bones of it and maybe have some conversations and then let them go from there?
I'm a fairly detailed scripter. I used to write comics by drawing each page out by hand.
Oh, wow.
I just sit down and wing it from panel to panel. I don't do that anymore. Now I outline. But at the time, it taught me a lot of valuable lessons, such as timing, how much weight a page can sustain, and most importantly, what happens next, which is the essential question in all fiction. And it makes you think what happens next. You don't just put 6 panels on a page and leave it to the artist to illustrate, which is what Stan Lee did.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. One of the big things I love about comic books is just simply that you have to write with the knowledge that at a certain point the reader is going to turn the page and see what comes next.
Right.
Which to me is, it may sound basic to some people, but to me it's one of the most thrilling parts of writing a comic book is the idea that the story is being propelled by the physical act of the reader turning the page, which is just something you can't get with any other medium. The reader turns the page with the novel, but a novel isn't paced based on when you get to the bottom of the page, you're going to turn it and get see an instant visual surprise. And when people try and interpret comic books too literally to film, what happens is they're failing to realize that the story was originally crafted with that page turn in mind, and so it's a bit more difficult to make it work on film. I do enjoy the Sin City movies, but I felt like they definitely suffered from that a little bit. So was there a lot of the reason that when you did a graphic novel you combined the two novels together? Was that you kind of feeling that it needed to be restructured for the comic page?
No, I felt that by the time we got around to the comic, the novel had been out for 5 months or 6 months, and I took a fresh look at it, and I realized I had originally written 5 scripts, which would have been over 100 pages, and I felt that was unwieldy and unrealistic. So I set out to restructure it into a fat graphic novel. It's going to be a 60-page story now. And in doing that, I condensed some items and brought in some other items so that the story is largely fresh. It contains elements of the novel, but the language is different, the situations are different, and in some ways it's a different story.
Yeah, I'd imagine transferring it in to a different medium. I feel that different mediums demand that the story it happens organically. It's not even something that I feel like just engaging the medium inspires you to do it, approach a story in different ways. I know I kind of said that a little messily, but so I'm curious. One of the things I'm curious about Florida Man is like where he. I mean, he can go anywhere. I mean, he doesn't have to stay in Florida. I mean, could we see him, go to Siberia or go to Russia or not Russia, or go to outer space? Like could he feasibly end up in, I don't know, traveling through time? I know this sounds outlandish, but it's just he seems like such a character that's so great to get reactions out of different walks of life, different
Wait, it's funny you should mention that, because a guy suggested to me, well, what should happen is that some alien baby like young Clark Kent should land on Earth in Florida, and Gary should adopt him and raise him as a redneck.
Kind of like.
Well, I thought, I haven't any plans to do that yet, but I do have some outlandish stuff. The trouble is, they're working on the novel now. We have to recognize the reality of this virus, which has corrupted everything. And thank God Florida has opened up, which I think is the right thing to do. But it would prevent Gary from traveling to Siberia. But who knows? I mean, we could find a way to get him there, too. A lot of the humor arises from a fish out of water situation when Gary finds himself rubbing elbows with the hoi polloi. The Duke and Duchess of Windsor play a big part in the third novel.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's just going back to the alien ship crash landing on in Florida Man raising the child. I know they've done that with Max Immortal, and they've done that with The Boys, sort of. I figured Florida Man would be more of the kind of guy that would be abducted by aliens and
anally probed. Say it.
I wasn't gonna say it because you're the writer. I don't want to be that one of those guys that's like, hey, I've got a great idea for your next story, and people do that to me all the time, and I'm like, that sounds great.
Well, listen, you should read Hogzilla, because there is an alien in it.
Oh, okay, all right.
In fact, there's a bunch of aliens, and they're all multiple personalities, and they're all fighting with each other.
That sounds awesome. All right, well, don't give away any more. But speaking of aliens, though, this isn't the only project that you've got going on, and what a perfect segue, if I do say so myself, because you work with bless you. You work with a lot of different talents, and one of the talents that you're kind of making waves with, so to speak, is Richard Meyer. Also known as Ya Boi Zack, who does Comics Matter. It's a very popular YouTube review channel. Very savvy guy, business-wise, and I would say just kind of common sense-wise. I like listening to him talk because he's very good at articulating things that we're all thinking but may not be able to put it quite as eloquently as he does, and he's got a good sense of humor. But he's got a crowdfunding campaign going on as well for his next graphic novel, Impossible Stars. He's a master at crowdfunding. He seems to really just got it going on. But he is also bringing one of your comic book works into it because presumably he thinks a lot of it, and he feels like more people need to know about it and a new generation needs to experience it, which is Nexis. So you're creating a new Nexis graphic novel with Kelsey Shannon. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Richard approached me. He said he'd like to commission a 3-issue miniseries. He's a great admirer of the book, and I'm very grateful for him to do this. And he said that he wanted it to be like The Mandalorian. Well, I've never seen The Mandalorian. I've never watched an episode, but I heard a lot about it. And what I got the gist of was that people admired that it was similar to a spaghetti western. Now, the story's called Triplets. There are 3 issues. And the triplets are 3 triplets who are born on Earth who have perfect telepathic ability to communicate with each other regardless of where they are, which means one could be in a different galaxy and think something, and its sibling would instantly receive that message, which makes them very valuable to currency speculators, among others. And what happens is that the children are kidnapped by an interstellar crime cartel, and the parents have no recourse but to go to Ilum and ask if Nexis will retrieve their children for them. And the first episode is set on a world that's very Western-like in its structure. Everybody will recognize it who's a fond of Westerns. And I have fun with the scene and the setting. But at the same time, it's a very serious story, and Nexus fans will be delighted with it. Not just the humor, but the seriousness of it, and seeing Nexus in this type of setting.
That sounds fantastic, and I have to say as well, I'm a fan of Westerns. I kind of came into them late in life and was introduced to them actually by a mutual friend of ours who's unfortunately no longer with us, James Hudnall. But he introduced me to all the different, like Fistful of Dollars and the Once Upon a Time in the West, that sort of thing. He had a great love for them, and I learned a lot. I don't know if you're hearing that squeaky toy back there. But one of the things that I thought was really fascinating, which I didn't realize, I didn't make a connection to, but Westerns are akin to samurai movies in a lot of ways. And I found out that there was the samurai movie Yojimbo, which was, I guess, everyone thought A Fistful of Dollars ripped off Yojimbo. And then Roger Corman made his own version in the 80s with David Carradine called, what was it called? It was called The Warrior and the Sorceress. And everybody was going, isn't Yojimbo, isn't Kurosawa going to sue these people for doing this? And then Kurosawa said...
Every one of those stories is based on Red Harvest.
I was going to say, yeah, that Kurosawa confessed that. So... there seems to be this like long-standing tradition in kind of Westerns and that sort of thing. It's like it's almost like it's, I don't want to say an homage, but it almost seems like the source material that it sprang from created a vocabulary that all the different writers and directors and comic book people or whatever medium it is. Did you have you found that there's a vocabulary like that kind of speaks to the audience and
oh yeah.
I
gotta say, I'm not a fan of the spaghetti westerns because I think they're too filled with artifice and posturing. I like stories that I believe could really happen, that sound with real dialogue. And two of my favorite westerns, both star Burt Lancaster. One is Olzana's Raid, which is a very grim look at the Apache Wars, and the other is Valdez's Coming, which is based on an Elmore Leonard novel, and they're both brilliant movies.
So how are they? So like you said, you feel like now I know what you mean with a lot of spaghetti westerns. There is a lot of posturing and a lot of kind of drawn out moments and that sort of thing. And you haven't seen The Mandalorian, so I feel like in a way this kind of frees you up to bring, I don't know how to explain this, but to bring something new then, it sounds like.
I hope so.
Is this something that people who have never heard of Nexis before, is this a good introduction for them?
I'm pretty sure that anybody picking this up as their first Nexus will love it.
Fantastic. So, are you working on anything else with Richard? I know he's a big name at the moment. What has it been like, kind of being associated with him?
Well, of course, it's cost me some friends, but they weren't real friends. There are people who baselessly accuse him of all sorts of stupid shit. They don't know him. They don't know what they're talking about. I don't know why. They mark him as a racist, sexist, homophobe. He's none of those things. I just don't understand it. But what's clear is he's on one side of the divide and a lot of people are on the other. And I'm on the side Richard's on, not by choice, but by necessity.
Well, I think the only thing that I've seen from him that upsets people is just that he has a set of values and he speaks to them and he stands for them. And when I say he speaks to them, I don't mean the audience, but he speaks to his values. I don't understand the racist thing, because I know all of his children are mixed race children. So yeah, that was a bit odd too. I think it just comes from the fact that he was calling out a lot of poorly written comic books, and rather than stand by their work, they chose to attack him, I guess. But I'd imagine at the same time he's got a lot of followers who, you know, understand his sincerity, and you probably gain some supporters out of it as well. I mean, I'm sure. So let's see. I'm just going to go back to all of my different notes. So I also want to revisit Offworlder, because this is a comic that I know is it's got an Indiegogo as well. As of right now, it's only got 18 hours left to it, so it may be over by the time this episode comes out. But this is a project. You said something before the interview started that I thought was very good. You said this is essentially, you said this is top-notch material. You really believe in it, and so you continue to stand by for it and push for it to get out there.
Yeah, and I have to point out, I did not launch these campaigns. I was asked to write it by Ben Henderson, the creator, who gave me a very loose outline. And before I proceeded, I wrote a very detailed outline. And it's a story, a science fiction story that begins in the 6th century, about a man ripped out of space and time by an alien race to be their champion. And there are overtures to so many great science fiction stories, such as The Star's My Destination, a bit of Silver Surfer, even a bit of Nexis. But it was Ben's idea. And some people have compared it to Highlander in space, and I think that's fair, because James Gunn, the protagonist, is a Scottish warlord when we first meet him. The artist, Jordi Armengol, is a mind-blower. I mean, anybody who goes and looks at that art, their jaw is just going to hit the floor. He's got a unique style that's fantastic and compelling, with a lot of spotted blacks. He reminds me a little bit of Steranko.
Yeah, I'm looking at the artwork now, and it really is beautiful. It's got a lot of energy to it. And
we also, I should point out, we have a Kickstarter for Offworld as well, and that's going to be going on for a while.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm looking at, let's see, because I'm looking at the Kickstarter right now. It says 18 hours to go.
Oh, there's an Indiegogo too then.
An Indiegogo. Both. Okay,
yeah.
Now that makes sense. And I think an Indiegogo is a good place for it, because you can continue on your campaign. Now, The Star's My Destination. That's a Heinlein novel.
Alfred Bester. Bester.
I was going to say, I know that novel, and I have not read it, and for some reason I associated it with Heinlein for a second.
It's a good book.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. And I'm really at the moment on a big science fiction kick. I saw the new Dune trailer. I revisited that book thinking maybe I remember it wrong. I find Dune a little bit dry. So, anyway, I may or may not have intended that pun.
Have you read any of the Kevin J. Anderson Dunes?
No, I haven't. Have you?
Yeah, they're very good. There are about 12 of them. A new one just came out.
Oh, okay, cool. So, I mean, I've always found the mythology very fascinating, but I especially when it comes to turning it into a movie. I did enjoy the David Lynch version.
Me too.
But you see the material he was working with and how he was trying to interpret it. And this is kind of going back to what I was saying about different mediums really kind of influencing the story. Because if you read the book Dune, it seems like it would be impossible to turn it into a movie, because most of the book is happening in the characters' heads. Even though it's got this grandiose setting in this, thousands of years into the future science fiction concept, it's all people sitting in rooms kind of playing mind games with one another and trying to manipulate and scheme, and most of the action happens, quote unquote, if we're talking in terms of movie, it happens off screen. But it's not a book that I really wanted to like it more than I did, and I think I enjoyed the movie more. So now I'm kind of looking into all sorts of different science fiction concepts. I'm finding a little bit in revisiting Michael Crichton at the moment, which I really enjoy. So I like the idea of taking science fiction concepts in directions they never go, such as the idea that aliens could be technologically advanced while we're still fighting with axes and swords in the Scottish Highland. But
that's exactly right.
But this character, I mean, all the technology in the world, you still need champions. So it sounds like this guy is a real. Well, what is James Gunn like as a character? What kind of values does he have? Where is he coming from?
Well, he's a loving family man, and when we meet him, he has a wife and a child, but his world is disrupted by the arrival of this Egyptian princess Sarah, who's fleeing Alexandria when the Islamic hordes lay siege to Alexandria in the 6th century. They set fire to the library of Alexandria, and that was what drove her from her home. But her seer told her that she had to travel far to the northwest to find a champion. So while James Gunn is busy battling these Viking invaders, and they're having this horrible bloody battle where they're cleaving each other in two with these giant axes, all of a sudden her ship appears, and it's a strange ship. It's an Egyptian ship. It's a bark. It looks more like a junk than the Viking vessels. And the sight of it is almost like the arrival of an alien craft. They're so stunned by this thing that the fighting just stops. Well, she glides into harbor and gets off and goes up to see Gunn. Then the fighting starts again, but it shakes everybody up. And then she says, "Listen, we have bigger fish to fry. I understand you're fighting for your life here against the Vikings, but we're about to be visited by a force from outer space for which we have no understanding, and they're going to require you and me to work together to save the Earth, and not only just the Earth, but the universe." And this causes friction in James Gunn's marriage because Sarah's very beautiful, and his wife misinterprets their liaison. And that's just one element of it. But Gunn's a real stand-up guy. He just wants to do right by his family and his tribe.
Yeah, this is the kind of characters that I really enjoy too. Is I mean, obviously, all characters must be flawed in some way. No human being is perfect, and a story is about them growing as a character. But I do feel like recently, and I don't know if this is just a product of what they tell people in writing classes or whatever, but it seems like every character we meet these days in a film or a book or something is kind of an unlikable jerk. And even though they do go through a transformation and become a better person in the story, it's very hard to find characters that kind of start out, if flawed, but with strong values that you can kind of admire and think, yeah, I would, if I had to fight, I'd fight alongside that guy. Are those generally the kind of characters that attract you?
Well, yeah, they're the type of character I try to create too. I believe that the audience wants someone with whom they can identify and for whom they can root. And there's a book by John Gardner called On Moral Fiction, and it explains why the story should have a moral epiphany, although it may not be the point of the story. But the reader is more satisfied when good is rewarded and evil is punished. Now, we've all read books by master novelists in which the hero suffers tremendously and sometimes dies. And I can think of the movie Spartacus, where Spartacus is being crucified at the end. He's going to die. But in the last scene, his wife goes by in a cart and shows him his baby son, which gives him hope that his line will live on. And that's the moral epiphany of that story.
That's a good way of thinking about it, because there are definitely characters that you feel like the what's driving the character is some value that they feel is greater than themselves. So
yes, yeah, and that's a recurring theme in my fiction, which is that no man is happy until he believes in something greater than himself.
Does Florida Man have something like that?
No.
You got to wonder, because I mean, I'm a personal believer in that anybody can be a hero at some point. So, but maybe that goes against the humor of Florida Man.
Well,
But,
no, Gary Duba is a hero several times in the book, which reveals his character. We just never get into the question of religion there.
oh yeah, I wouldn't compare him to Spartacus for sure.
Except in the second novel, Hogzilla, where he gets tied up with this weird cult that's taken over a city in Florida, the Church of Necroeconomics. Any comparison to any actual cult, like in Clearwater, is not intended.
The cult of necroeconomics.
Necroeconomics, which is forecasting the future and making financial decisions based on animal sacrifice.
Are there T-shirts available?
Not yet.
Because I would wear that T-shirt.
It's all based on the Necroeconomicon.
Say that again? Say that one more time?
The Necroeconomicon, their holy Bible.
There's another T-shirt. You could be raking it in on the T-shirts. Yeah, sorry. I had to go back to Florida Man for a moment there. So now in the past, I remember first becoming aware of you a long time ago when I was a teenager in Thousand Oaks. I remember I worked at a comic book store called Heidi Ho Comics, which I believe you did a signing at. I'm sure you did a lot of signings, so I don't expect you to remember that encounter. But you were writing for Malibu Comics at the time. Is that right?
I did a number of titles for Malibu, the most important of which was Bruce Lee with Val Myerick.
Val Myerick?
Yeah.
Good old Val. He's an amazing artist, by the way, and I know you've worked with him a lot. He's been posting some samurai art. I know, different culture.
I love that book. Yeah, I have a lot of those the Young Master.
He is brilliant, and he's been on the shows before as well. I should get him. You know what I should have done? I should have got him in as a co-host to interview you. But
we can do that again. I was just talking to Vale this afternoon.
I know he usually rides his horses around now, but Val is a great guy. Do you guys ever talk about doing projects together in the future, or are you all just kind of too busy with all this other stuff you got going on?
Well, we talked about it today, but Vale said, yeah, he would love to, but he's really booked up right now. He's doing a lot of that commercial stuff. I know he's working with you on a lot of stuff. In fact, I've seen a number of paintings he's done for you, which are stunning. But Vale and I have worked. I probably worked with him more than any other artist except Steve Rude.
Yeah, the notorious Steve Rude, there's a documentary on Amazon at the moment about him.
Have you seen it?
I have not yet. What did you think of it? Is it accurate?
I couldn't say, Chris. I think you should watch it for yourself.
We'll push that one as well. Yeah, you've worked with a lot of amazing talents through the years. Steve Rude is an amazing artist, and I would say his artwork, or his Batman Superman World's Finest with Dave Gibbons, is probably among my favorite DC comic stories of all time. So that's it's part of me is like, should I watch it? Because I hear some crazy stuff. There's no correlation with him and Florida Man, I'm sure.
No.
So, all right. Well, I'm very excited for a lot of this stuff. Florida Man, Nexis with the Impossible Stars, Indiegogo, which I'll post a link to. I'll post a link to all the Indiegogos so
Thanks,
people can
Chris.
check them out. And the Amazon links. This is all available on Amazon, right? Florida Man is available for...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I will post the links to Florida Man and your other works. I do encourage people to check out Nexis as well. I should have brought my Nexis comics over. They're sitting on a shelf right over here, just out of reach. I'll pull my headphones off my head if I reach for them.
But people can't see this, can they?
No, they can't. So I'll just describe them. I'm actually holding them and flipping through them right now, and they look beautiful. So I will. I think this is a great place to wrap up, but I do want you to hang around for the post show for 10 or 15 minutes, which is available to my Patreon supporters.
Okay.
But before we wrap up for the YouTube version of the show, is there anything that you would like to say to the listeners?
Well, thanks for listening, folks. I don't know what to say. I'll say this, that I have 3 rules for myself. And the first one is it's my job to entertain, which may seem obvious, but it's not so obvious, apparently. And number 2 is show, don't tell. Sounds very simple, but it's actually quite difficult in execution. And number 3 is be original. Well, what does that mean? Because there are only 7 plots in fiction. Well, it means that we're all unique individuals. And when we create a story, we bring to it our own sensibilities and worldview, and you should let that flow through because it's what colors your fiction.
Excellent. That is actually a really good place to leave off. I'm gonna grill you about that a little bit in the after show. We'll not grill you. That sounds like I'm gonna challenge you on it, but I want to expand upon those points a little bit because these are things that I talk about on my channel a lot, especially the show don't tell, the values, and the job of entertaining people. I think those are all great subjects to expand on for the after show. So please join me on Patreon, folks. But thank you for subscribing to this channel. Please remember to like, subscribe, share if you haven't already. Check out the links below so you can read Mike's wonderful material, and look for Mike on social media. I don't know if he's gonna. Well, you're not too much on social media, are you? You're more of just the person.
Well, no, I'm on Twitter at Bloody Red Baron, and I'm on Facebook as Michael A. Baron and Mike Baron, my author page. And I have a website, bloodyredbaron.com, which we're going to be updating shortly. But mostly you can reach me through Facebook and Twitter. And
nice.
I'm on Instagram, too.
Oh, great. I love Instagram. I'm on there as well. All right. Well, then we'll leave links to that as well. And we'll be right back with the after show. Have a good one, everyone.